C-level is like, let's do this, or CEO, whoever, we're going to do this. This is why it matters. Or we have to think about the office we rented and all of this kind of stuff. All important business things to take into consideration. But then it's the people function HR team that says, okay, here's the new policy we have to do. And they probably know, what motivates people. Like, hey, this person really joined us because of the flexibility, or this person is going through these things and it just makes it easier and they're getting the work done. So it makes sense. It's about half, right? And I think that's true.
Hey, it's William Tincup and Ryan Leary. You are listening, hopefully watching the You Should Know podcast. We have Luck on from Leapsome, where we're going to talking about a new report that's dropping. It's Protecting People First Strategies, Leapsome's 2025 HR Insights Report. So, Luck, how you doing today?
Very well. Thank you for
I
having
was
me
going to say
on.
we're lucky to have you, and then I'm like, I can't say that because she's probably heard that bit a couple of
I have,
times. We are
but
fortunate
There you
to
go.
have you on the show.
love it.
So we're going to go through some of the key findings and just kind of get your take. You're an HR pro. You've been in HR. How long have you been in HR?
Almost 20 years, William.
Wow.
Long time.
But these
So
are,
you've seen a thing or two.
I was about to say,
I've seen a few
these are dog
things.
years, right? So that's
Yeah.
20
Yes.
times. Yeah, okay.
I'm
I felt like
ancient.
the farmer's commercial. We've seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of those things you've seen, you can't talk about.
Exactly.
100%. 100%. Statute of limitations hasn't run out on those things.
Tell us your best HR nightmare. No, I'm just kidding. Don't
Right.
tell
No.
me.
We did a show like that, actually. Like we did last year, we did a misconduct at work show.
Okay.
And so people would come and sit down. It was at a trade show. And we would do this bit and say, all right, gloves are off, anonymize. We don't want to know the company name. I don't know any of that stuff. What's the worst thing you've had happen at work? And Ryan and I were braced for the results-ish. But when people got on, they went way further than what we
Wow.
thought. Like,
And
I
I
had some
realized it wasn't on video. Luck,
Oh,
and
yeah.
just
No, I'm
audio
glad.
and nothing.
Yeah.
They
Oh
were
my goodness.
ready to roll.
Wheels.
I can only imagine. Get the popcorn ready, right?
The wheels just get, because they could anonymize. They were like, you know what? I heard this story about this company and this happened. Like,
Yeah.
so that was fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit about the report, Ryan. Let's talk about some of the key findings.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, look, I'm gonna read this stat to you that we
Okay.
pulled out. I want to get your hot take on it. 92% of HR leaders say they face internal barriers when pushing people first initiatives.
Yep. I would,
Yes,
true.
check.
92%, that's huge, but I would say that is 100% true. I think whenever you push for kind of people first initiatives, first we also have to define what that is, but I feel like in general, you often meet with resistance of some kind. Like you need to prove the ROI, you need to prove how this impacts, some other statistic, and we don't have budget right now. Like all of these things are very typical responses to HR people initiatives. So I'm not surprised that is the finding.
Do people see people first as the opposite of company first?
That is a great point, William. I think that's true. I think in a lot of places, I think it's changing, but for a lot of times it's people versus bottom line. When I think most experienced HR leaders don't think that at all. They are aligned. And when you have both of those aligned, you actually get more productivity, more output. And I think some of the report shows that. But yeah, it's like this binary thing when obviously we know it's not so much a binary world anymore.
It should be congruent. I mean, your people first strategy should be also in line with your company strategy or outcomes, etc. That is
we just
a big
talked
number.
about this.
Yeah,
we just talked on our Sunday show. We just talked about this where is like people versus the organization.
Yeah.
Why can't we just work? Like I want to come to work with expectations, but I don't want to have to. I don't know. It's a weird dynamic.
Yeah,
the work, right?
Well,
I come to work to work.
The stat was 70% would take a 5% pay cut.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
To not do 5-day RTO.
Yep.
And then I said, Ryan, would you take the pay cut? He's like, it's just, I'm doing the same job. Why would I take a pay
Yeah.
cut?
Yeah.
Why can't we just do our jobs and just do
Why
the
can't we just
jobs in
yeah.
front of us and not have
Yeah.
to worry about all that stuff?
I'm doing the same job, same output, doesn't matter where I'm at.
Yeah.
If you want me to be remote, that's up to you. You want
Right.
me in the office? That's up to you. It's up to me to take that job, and I'm getting paid the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things we discussed when we were discussing that is 5% pay cut isn't just a 5% pay cut to work remotely because
Mhm.
you're going to get paid less. You're also going to get promoted less. So your career earnings are actually going to track less. Those 70% that said that they would take a 5% pay cut probably haven't factored in the long-term impact.
There's a lot of maths to do when you evaluate these things.
Train leaves El Paso at traveling
Yeah.
75 miles an hour.
That
Winds
4%
coming out of the
compound.
northwest. No, I'm just kidding. I was good
Yeah,
at
but I
word
think it's
problems, by the way.
I think it's so interesting though, right? Like, because I mean, it's really about flexibility,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, what do people value? You know, for someone like Ryan, it's like, hey, I'm doing the same thing. But for other people, it's like, hey, it is different because I'm actually saving time on my commute or something like that. So it's sort of like what makes it jive for you, what gets you motivated.
It should be that the algebra should be we solve for thrive.
Yeah,
Where do
love
you,
that.
how do you, when do you thrive?
Yeah.
And then whatever that is, it is. And we maximize the value of each employee and all the outputs because
Mhm.
the algebra is about thriving, not about some other things that happen at offices.
Absolutely. We should get that on a t-shirt.
Thrive. All righty, let me give you another kind of a key
Yeah.
finding. 56% are getting C-level pressure to enforce return to office policies. Dramatic foreshadowing. So we just talked about this. So let's just say 50%. It's a little bit more than that. They're getting pressure from HR
Mhm.
to kind of toe the line of we need everybody back in the office.
Yep.
Is that number? I mean, first of all, how do you
That
feel
makes
about
sense.
that?
How do I feel about that? Well, how you stated it is like pressure from HR. I think this is where HR gets a bad rap. I don't think we're the ones pressuring people to come back to work at all.
CEOs
No,
are
It's
no,
actually
pressuring
me and
HR.
Salem.
yep.
Yeah, yeah.
C-level is like, let's do this. Or CEO, whoever, we're going to do this. This is why it matters. Or we have to think about the office we rented and all of this kind of stuff. All important business
Right.
things to take into consideration. But then it's the people function HR team that says, okay, here's the new policy we have to do. And they probably know, what motivates people. Like, hey, this person really joined us because of the flexibility, or this person is going through these things and it just makes it easier and they're getting the work done. So it makes sense. It's about half, right? And I think that's true. It checks from folks that I talk to, like some companies and some industries are really pushing for it. And some with valid reason, right? Some like you have to work together and that's how you do things like in a lab or something like that. But other ones, it's just sort of like the industry's doing it, or like we've got to do what the other company's doing, or hey, we paid for this lease and so we want
Yeah.
people to come to the office.
That's right.
They all could be valid, I think, but I think it's like the narrative and the story and the why, like tell people why you want to do it, and it can get some people on board. Like I have a friend who their company is enforcing it sort of,
Mhm.
but and their HR person is like giving them numbers of what they need to meet, but the numbers don't really check out when you do the math. Like like
I
it's like,
don't.
where are you
Well,
getting this number from? Who's counting which badges, and like are you
I don't
taking
think
into
the
account
math checks out
PTO?
on a lot of it. Actually, I did meet a senior HR leader here in Dallas, and she goes, "Okay, so what we have is mandatory Wednesdays.
Hmm.
You got to be in the office on Wednesdays, but all we're going to do is soft skill development. So we're not going to do anything else. We're going to be doing design charrettes. We're going to be brainstorming. Like there's not work going to be being done. You can do that at home in the other 4 days, but on Wednesdays, because we've got a younger population that, you know, is used to using devices and not necessarily making eye contact, not necessarily doing some of the things that we want done, need done in the company, and they don't know how to do it. So how do we teach them? Well, we could force them to come back in the office, uh, and then and then hope that they learn it, or we can actually organize a way to
Yes.
learn it. Which
Mhm.
I love that when she was talking about it, she was excited about the prospect of okay, we can have all 5 generations, 6 generations at work,
Yeah.
but we're not working.
Yes.
the goal is to not
Yeah.
work. The goal is to do all these other types of things with
Yeah.
the executives and getting to know each other and all this other soft
I
skill
love that.
development.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when I hear stuff like that, again, that's not a 5-day RTO. However, I love the fact that you can see that they've
Mhm.
really thought it through. Like
Absolutely.
They're appeasing both sides, but they're evolving and
Yes.
adapting to the
Mhm.
work. And the fact that you could put 4 or 5 generations in the office, there's a communication gap, right?
100%.
We've talked about this a ton. There's a communication gap across all of those
Yep.
generations. They don't know how to talk or work with each other.
That's
It's
right.
very different. Now they get to be that. Now, how do you do that where it doesn't affect work midweek?
Right.
Right? You're kind of now you're resetting almost. That's why I don't like the hump day deal, because
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, you work, you strive, you feel good. I got the Wednesday. I'm gonna go to the office. I don't have work today.
Mhm.
Thursday, Friday, I got to reset. I'm already at the weekend. So it breaks up the work week,
Yep.
but where does that leave productivity?
I found that fascinating as a way
No, I think
to
it's great. But you
bridge the
highlight
gap.
something that I think is really important, and it's like work by design, right? Like not
Mm.
just like some tired like adage that
Yep.
hey, everyone's got to go to the office, but it's like they're designing it in a way where it's like it seems like people coming together to have these
Right.
meaningful moments is really important and core to the culture. And the narrative that they want is the storyline that hooks people in, right?
Right.
Like you have to have a purpose. And so I think that's really great. And I think that's what HR leaders really want to do is get this like kind of designed approach, not just like, okay, here's our new policy.
Yeah.
Let HR be your
Mhm.
police officer, you know?
It reminds me. I didn't work in restaurants that much. I did one night at a restaurant. No, we can't talk
One
about
night.
that story. But
It didn't last very long.
I did
No.
well. No, I was thrown into it because all the waitresses had quit on a Friday, and so I was thrown into it because a friend of mine was there and a bartender. But anyhow, it reminds me of pushing the specials. You know what happens in restaurants, like we have,
Mhm.
whatever, like
I never get the specials because
push
it
the
means
salmon,
old food.
push the salmon. Everyone push
Old
the
food.
salmon. It reminds me of that like the C-suite's like push RTO. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I need some intentionality
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
this. I need
Yeah.
like why? What's the
Yeah.
why? And how do I get the why for everyone else to be congruent and
Mhm.
understand? Like, there's a reason we're doing this.
Yeah,
And
That
exactly.
doesn't work.
I'm
Yeah.
not buying the
You,
salmon. Sorry,
Nobody's buying it.
no one's buying the salmon. I'm running from the salmon.
I love salmon,
run.
but
I do too.
not
A
if it's
little
the
lemon
special.
butter, done. But no, I'm running from any specials. In fact, it used to make me angry when people would come up and just assume I wanted to hear their specials. Like I had this whole bit, this comedy bit about if I want to know your specials, I'll ask you about the specials. Don't just come up and assume I want to know about your specials.
Is it? Let me ask you. Is it weird though, looking at your waiter or waitress? I always have a problem when I'm ordering. I have to look at the menu.
No.
I feel like they're just staring through me. It's
Right.
very weird.
So anyhow, Ryan,
All right, I've got
what do you
another
got for you?
stat for you. So, all right, 79%
Mhm.
agree that letting employees choose where they work is actually better for productivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
79, 80%.
That's
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, that's basic,
Who
right? Like,
doesn't think that?
yeah,
Who's the other 20%?
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's when
CEOs
when I
sometimes
look
don't
at a
like
number
people.
like that, I think about who didn't say yes to that?
Yes, yes.
Did they
Those
not
are the
understand
bad
the question?
managers. Those are the bad managers that people leave companies for.
I
Yeah.
think you're right. Actually, I think you're
I know.
onto something.
Yeah,
I think you're on to
21%.
the C-suite answered that,
Mhm.
and they want
Mhm.
people back. So they said productivity's here,
Mhm.
period, end of story. And I think it's bad managers because I think bad managers, they want to lord over you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's the only way they know that productivity can be done is they have to see you do it.
I think that I also think there's still it's so interesting these questions in the current like environment, right? Because we've all just gone through the COVID, we've all just gone through all of these things where everyone knows that these are options now. It's not like but
Mhm.
pre-COVID when working from home was sort of a nice, like a
Right.
very nice to have benefit.
Rare
Now
if.
it's like
Yeah.
everyone
Respectful.
has done this, right? So to ask this question in this current environment where people are still like, no, 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 you have to come to the office. I'm like, well,
Didn't
the
what
data doesn't show that.
didn't we just do this for like 3
Yeah.
years? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Now that said, I have said, and I've got to own up to it because I'm on the record saying it. if I apply for a job and it's in the office,
Right.
I have the choice whether or not to take it or not.
100%.
Exactly.
So it
Yep.
doesn't make the employer bad. It's your decision, right? And so many people complain like, I have a job now. They want me back. Well, when you applied for the job,
It was in the office.
it was in the office.
Yeah.
We had a moment in time,
Mhm.
and now they want you. So you have a decision: take the
Mhm.
job or don't take
Agreed.
the job.
Yep.
Well,
That's
and some of
yeah,
those during COVID, they were remote for forever.
forever, right?
So they marketed them as remote forever. I haven't seen a lot of people come back from that. Like, okay, it's not remote forever. We were,
Yeah.
we were
No,
just kidding.
Yeah.
no,
I haven't seen folks do that. I've seen
yeah,
more of the people that it wasn't stated. To your point, Ryan, when
Mhm.
you originally
yeah,
got the job, it was
Yep.
in the office.
yeah.
We
That
had
stuff
to do
changing.
remote because of a pandemic.
Mhm.
Pandemic's gone. Get back
Mhm.
in the office.
Yeah. I think Spotify was one of the companies where they said, "We don't need to see our people," or
Oh,
something like that.
Mhm.
Like, they
Yeah.
they went and had a funny thing about
oh
it,
yeah,
and
oh
yeah,
yeah.
which
We,
I
we
We
treat
which I
our
agree with.
we
theirs
treat our
was
people
a
like adults.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
that's
how,
it,
that was
that's
this.
it.
That was the
Yeah,
bit.
Yep.
It was just
yeah,
like we trust our
We
employees.
do. Yeah.
They're
I
yeah.
adults.
used to work at Spotify way back in the day.
Oh, did
So.
you?
No
Nice,
way.
nice. Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
That's
Mhm.
interesting.
There
All
you
right, let me
go.
give you. We got two more, but let me give you
Okay.
the fourth one. 58% say RTO is bad for employees with disabilities.
Yes. Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Yes.
I would say yes, and um, yeah, 58%. So I think more than half, right? And I think one of the things about flexibility and working from anywhere is that you give more people more options. Like uh for a lot of folks, and I know DEI is one of these things that comes on the chopping block, but this inclusion factor of it, like, hey, just because I need to, some people need to work in a specific environment. Some people can't like commute back and forth because of health reasons or whatever. um Giving the flexibility allows people to do that. So I do think it will hinder some folks, and there's been studies that said like women and um
Right.
people have a harder time if they're the caretaker of older generation children, whatever. So it just makes things harder, especially because again we've already gone through it. And so here we are on the other side of it,
Right.
and so people have experienced it now. It's not as simple as just being like, nope, like this is the status quo.
When I smell that number, it seems that that number should be higher.
Yeah.
If people really understand employees with disabilities, like if you ever work with somebody that's deaf or blind,
Yep.
or like any of those things, right?
Hmm.
Go through the whole list. If you've worked with people like that, I can't help but think that you have empathy for folks that they have to do the
Yeah.
job. They're doing the job, same job,
Yep.
but they're doing it with a loaded responsibility of a disability on top of them. Why make them
Absolutely.
work a
Yeah.
certain way? Just
Absolutely.
it almost, it's not seems vulgar. It almost seems harsh.
Hmm.
So when I look at 58, I'm like, that says to me that a lot of people haven't worked with people that haven't
Yeah.
worked with
That
disabilities.
they know of, right? That
That
they
they
don't
know.
know the
Great
struggle,
point.
you know?
Or
It's
it's
like,
just it's a lot
That's a
of
really great point.
old school thought
Yeah.
of this is how work was, this is how it is. It
uh
hasn't really evolved other than that moment in time. So I think we're still experiencing a lot of that. We still have
yeah.
a lot of the older generation, call
Hmm.
it like our parents,
Are
and
you talking
maybe
mostly
like in
about
between.
men?
No, 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 just
I
overall.
I
Like,
would actually, because
well,
coming out of the war and military industrial complex,
mhm.
it was on men.
Hmm.
I just think it's that this is how work was in the workplace. It was you
Hmm.
came here and they're just not ready to change. But that which we already know these numbers, they're already dying off and
Yeah.
retiring and all that. So this is going to change. There will be a full-fledged change. I mean, we're seeing it now. I don't think it's much longer.
I think Luck made a really important part in terms of visible versus not
Hmm.
visible.
Absolutely.
People that are going through learning differences, dyslexia or whatever, you might not know. I
Hmm.
Mhm.
mean, they might not ever talk about it. You might not know. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden now we're asking them to do something that's going to be more challenging in front of people instead of
Hmm.
at their house when they can kind of work through things in a different
Yeah.
Right.
way.
Yeah.
The
So
world has changed, right? Like a lot of young people, they've just learned online. And a lot of the folks that are coming into the workforce or just came,
yep,
they had college during COVID. Like they don't know how to interact, like in some cases,
100%.
like you were saying,
Yeah.
the Wednesdays come to the office to learn these soft skills. Like there's a lot of folks that don't have that. It doesn't mean that they can't learn them, but
No,
it
you can learn
it presents a
It's
trauma
it's
potentially, like
very different.
100%.
interacting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My youngest, like my youngest is she'll be 11 next week. She like her first couple years was COVID.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she was at home all
Yeah.
the time. She never experienced a classroom up
Mhm.
until a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So the adjustment there, and it never registered. I mean, it did, but it didn't.
Mhm.
It's kind of like they just go to school. Like you're
Yeah.
good.
Why
Good
are we
job.
talking? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What are we
Oh,
talking about here?
Get on the
Yeah.
bus.
But it was like she never had it.
Sorry.
She never had it. Like
yeah.
she just it was just one of those things, and it
Such a
took a
formative
while.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
It
how do
took
you
a while to
play? How do you
adjust.
play with people?
Yeah.
Well,
I noticed quickly I was not as good as the teachers.
oh yeah, no, it's horrible. The analogy of kids going through COVID and adults going through RTO, there's a lot of parallels
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
because we assumed that it was going to be a certain way, and all of a sudden to discover we can still be really super productive. We don't have to be
Yeah.
productive in the way that we used to be. And
Hmm.
teaching, learning, doesn't have to be done in the way that it was
Yeah.
done. So like
Right.
educators, they had to learn a bunch during that period, and like to go back and to teach like it was 2019. Why?
Yeah.
Why would you? There was nothing great about 2019. Why would you do that? Like, why wouldn't you learn? Why are we using the same containers of 2019? Some random year that wasn't that great. Why are we using those?
Hmm.
I, I think that translates
Simple.
to a lot of things in HR. Can translate to a lot of
For
things in
sure.
HR.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Next question. 1 in 3 HR leaders are already bracing for DEI budget cuts.
Yes.
There's a
I would
theme
think
here.
it'd be more.
I was about to
I would
say,
think it'd be 100%.
that's a three of three.
Yeah, I would
I know
say
this
yeah.
is a global study, so I think this is part of it. But yeah, I mean, there's just if you're in America right now, this is the hot topic. No matter where you stand on the divide, you're not supposed to call it that. There are boycotts. There's
Right.
there's all these things, right? Which is a shame, I think,
It is.
because everything we were just talking about, just including people, doesn't mean you have to have a
Right.
hard line around something. It's
Yeah.
more about like being more productive,
Right.
creating better outcomes, all that kind of stuff. But
I,
yeah, I would think even more people
I think it's
would be bracing for that.
positioned in America. Again, 1 in 3 in America makes sense. 1 in 3, or 1 in 3 in the world makes sense.
Mhm.
1 in 3 in America doesn't. It's much higher because of the political pressure. And I
Yeah.
think the reason is because it's been pitched as a zero sum game. You include somebody, it means you exclude somebody, which is not
Hmm.
true. You're
Hmm.
just making a bigger tent.
Hmm.
And so I think for me, I look at it as we made great strides. And whether or not we did or didn't, it appeared that we were making great strides from some of the social movements, Me Too, Love is Love, Black Lives Matter, etc. We were making strides. And it's going to we'll really fully realize the impact of this retread for years.
Hmm.
Because at one point the pendulum will move back and people will be like, okay, we need to get back to actually thinking about how do we include everyone.
Never. Yeah,
That's,
it was
that's
never
never
that.
been that's never been the bit. That's just white men being afraid of losing power is really ultimately what that translates to for me.
I am not a white male, but
I
I
and I didn't
I
say at
think
the Holiday Inn Express last
yeah.
night.
I just think it's such, all these strides because I remember growing up and feeling, the racial slurs and stuff that were thrown
Yep.
at me, my brother, my family. And we got so far ahead and I have mixed race kids now and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
like really? Where are we going back to? Because they've experienced a different world. Again, it's like you can't close the box, right?
Nope.
Like we've experienced remote work. We've experienced people of different cultures
Right.
and backgrounds, different disabilities that you can see or not see and everything's okay. Like, and
Yeah.
then now you're supposed to shove it back inside into some other categories. And I think that's the part that makes things a little bit hard to swallow as a parent and also as someone who cares about like, young folks coming into the workforce that have experienced like this different kind of world where they weren't just made fun of because of what their eyes look like or how they sound or the religion that they practice. So it's a hard thing that
Yeah.
my mom friends and I talk about.
Oh, 100%. I think it's the back channel right now of TA and HR talking to each other like, how do we sell this?
Mhm,
Because the prospects, or excuse me, the candidates, they
mhm,
want this. By
mhm,
and large, they want employers that have these types of policies, they have these types of programs, they're spending this type of money, etc. We want this, and
mhm,
companies they're hiding behind all kinds of stuff. Our customers don't care, like Ryan and we've pretty much made fun of everyone that kind of like you're eliminating DEI because of what really? It's some people they never believed in it, they just got on the
mhm,
bandwagon.
mhm.
It's like people that colorize their logo during Pride Month or June. They didn't really care. Felt the
Yeah.
pressure of we need to
Mhm.
rainbowize our logo
Yep.
so that we look like we care. And now they've got cover to then still not care. And so it's disheartening.
Yeah.
Hate to end on a bum note like that, but the report that's coming out from y'all from Leapsome, it's chock full. We just took out 5 stats
Yeah.
randomly, so chock full with all kinds of good stuff. So thank you and your team for putting this together, and thank you for coming on and giving us your opinion on some of the stats.
This was so great, Ryan and William. So nice to hang out with you and such great conversation. I'm gonna have to test out your bits of going to the bar,
100%.
to the restaurant.
Let us know how that works.
I got no. The martini thing is genius. I mean, even if you don't do martinis, you like
Yeah,
Russian,
yeah,
different types of drinks.
yeah.
You can do it with anything.
Love it.
I mean, a friend of mine did it with craft beer. Same thing.
Amazing. Yeah.
So
Well,
it
love the
doesn't really matter.
discussion. Love the discussion and appreciate you all having us on.
And thanks for the audience for listening. Until next time.
Right.